Out. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Soul Journeys podcast. I am your host, Jennifer Longmore, founder of souljourneys.ca, and today we are introducing you to the one and only Danielle Hoffman, three-time best-selling author, international channel, legacy work coach to thousands around the world. She is the co-creator with her business partner and guide, Thoth, of the Multi-D Abundance Method, Divine Light Activation, and the Ascended Master Academy, where her specialty is leading coaches, healers, mentors, and spiritual teachers to embody their divine self and create their unique legacy body of work, which might be a book or a program or irresistible content with source so that you can add another 100K to your bottom line anytime you choose. Danielle is a channel, as I mentioned, and we are going to get some messages today for how we can brace for this next phase of our ascension journey. So welcome, Danielle.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, how are you?
Fantastic.
Yeah. For those of you that don't have the opportunity to see Danielle, if you're listening instead of watching this on video on YouTube, Danielle looks like the epitome of an ascended master right now, the way her background is and her hair and so on. We were kind of joking about it before we started recording. So welcome. I'm glad you're here. So let's give people a little bit of a background of you before we dive into some messages so people understand how did you get to this place where you're channeling, because we know that especially I would say over the last 18 months, people are much more discerning about who they let into their consciousness and wanting to know what source, so to speak, people are channeling from and so on. So maybe you could give us some background on that.
Well, it's been more than, quarter of a century that I've been up to this. And of course, came in with that awareness of energy and multidimensional communication. So really having an awareness of what others were communicating, whether they were verbalizing it or not. And then really my access point is knowledge and love. So Thoth, Jehudi Tehudi is the keeper of the Akashic records. Scribe serves the goddess, connected to Egypt and infinite knowledge. And then I also work closely with the Magdalens and Isis. And so the energy of truth and love is the connection. And wow, it's been since the early 2000s, I think, that I've been channeling them and the Council of Light. And I'm also very discerning of the bandwidths of consciousness that I access.
Yeah. Well, we're all awake here, right? So I know it's not lost on people, and I know people know anyways that I wouldn't be having anyone on the show that I didn't feel so honored to have on. And I know you've been a clear channel for so long, plus you're just a super sweet and highly sought after person, because your energy is so inviting, and you're operating from that higher dimension, right? So it really shows, and I know that's going to reflect today. So okay, so here we are. We're at this time we're recording it, we're over 18 months into the good old days when we were just staying at home for 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And now we're having meme wars over Facebook and Instagram outages to see who can outdo each other. And all of the things that have happened in between, and all of the things that are going to happen after today when we record it. So there's just so much, right? There's so much unpacking, but then there's so much need to tune into where are we going? Where am I going individually? Where are we going as a collective? What is this whole timeline thing? Everyone keeps talking about 5D. Everyone keeps talking about choose a timeline, pick a lane, whatever you want to call it. So what are the guides saying about how to best navigate even the next 12 months? What can we expect? What would be the best use of our energy and focus? What maybe shouldn't we focus on?
Yeah, I'd love to bring them in directly. And before I do, what stands out to me to share is when you were introducing me of like us joking around of me looking like an ascended master, that's a lot of what the Council of Light is talking about these days, is that we are ascended masters who walk among, and that really is a primary focus. And when we're coming to that, and of course it's an evolution, and that's a part of the awakening, and we all have our paths to that, if we're choosing that path, then it really is operating from a completely different dimension. So rather than coming from our slower vibrational body, mind, emotion filters, which distort things and have illusion lies and all of that, then we're really coming from that connected place, that place of being in union, in unity, and also taking up a lot more space so that things really don't affect us in the way that they do when we're only operating from our body, mind, emotional filters. So that's what I would say would be a primary focus, is whatever we can all do to be accessing more of our whole selves, our divine selves, our extraordinary selves, our ascended master selves, and to walk on the earth in that way. And I know that's very ephemeral, and yet what I'm seeing in this 18 months is that what the Council of Light's talking about, we're in the Olympics of unity consciousness now. Like, it's not, I'm gonna watch my last performance to see how I did, or no, I'm not ready, I'm gonna take another 5 years to get ready. Like, it's go time. So there's so much daily practice to notice, where we're coming from, the energy that we're coming from. So that's what I would share. And if there's anything you want to bounce off on around that, we can. And then it does feel like the Council of Light would like to come in at some point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree with you. I do think it's about taking up space without apology, allowing ourselves to really shine in the brilliance of who we are and who we came here to be, and be the unique snowflake, so to speak, right? That unique harmonic that only we carry, really allowing ourselves to fill the snowflake, right? And understand that that's a key to unlocking collective consciousness for all, as far as the ascension journey goes. And that if we're going to alter the harmonics of that snowflake, or we're not going to live in full alignment with it, it doesn't mean we're doing anything wrong. It just means that the collective consciousness is going to miss that key that's going to unlock some particular code for the next level of our personal ascension, but also our collective ascension. So that's what I've been hearing a lot, but definitely would love to hear. I can feel the guides coming in, like they're really knocking on the door.
Yeah. So I'll just take a moment here to tune in, and inviting each of you to tune into your snowflake, your unique signature energy, and also your desire of what would you'd be calling in, because it's always in response to your asking and your calling. Hello, dear ones. This is Thoth, the Magdalens, and a unity consciousness, Council of Light, moving more into the forefront of this divine transmission. And we are delighted to be here with you, Jennifer, and with each of you, for it is a very extraordinary and exciting time, one from our perspective that you each waited in line to be here for, that there has been a sense of before and after, and that before and after you are speaking about in terms of the last 18 months. And there is the larger context of what that before and after really is. The before of being in separation, survival, and that old paradigm of fear and doubt and worry and lack and scarcity. And then the after of what you speak of as the Great Awakening, what we talk of as unity consciousness, that plain and simple, there is more to be garnered from living in unity consciousness, co-creation, abundance, joy, than there is to be repeating another repetitive pattern of scarcity consciousness. So that would be our first tool or tip or something to shine the light on, is to really notice that you have already your PhDs, what Danielle was speaking about, of really being an ascended master who walks among, recognizes that you have mastery, you have PhD in the old paradigm of repetitive patterns. And now that has been integrated, and it can continue to be integrated even more, so that there's really nothing more to garner from it. And then there is the invitation to be aware of, when am I in a habitual way of interacting that is outdated, and when am I in that next wave or new curve or new way of being. And there's a lot of ripe opportunities to be acknowledging that. So first, we just invite you all to give yourselves your own ascended mastery, your own master's degree in whatever repetitive patterns were part of the old paradigm collective consciousness, and then moving on to be really tapping into, and this is what we mean by the after. The after, you already know the new paradigm tools you actually incarnated with. You're here to bring them forward. It's why we really assist with individuals to bring in new modalities, new books that haven't existed on the Earth Star before, because that's what's required. It's not going to be the same tools that you're playing a different game now that worked in the old game. So we just invite that mastery and expiration dates on all the outdated ways, and then to be noticing how many more now moments you're actually responding in different ways, or in that responsibility, the ability to respond from an energy of the Great Awakening, of what we speak of as multidimensionality. So that would be our opening message, and we're happy to explore any questions that you have or comments.
I love that. I joke with my clients a lot that we can give ourselves the certificate of completion when we have mastered something. Sometimes we have a need to keep showing ourselves that we've mastered something. And meanwhile, it can be time to move on, right? So I love that you shared that. My spidey senses kind of got up a little bit about unity consciousness, because I have a sense of what you mean by that. But I also know there's a lot of distortions in the collective around what unity consciousness means. I know there's been a lot of psychological operation around using that term. So there's like a malevolent definition or distortion of unity consciousness. And then there is a benevolent, I'll say, definition of that. So can you just share what you mean by unity consciousness? What does that actually look like if we're living it day to day? If I was embodied in unity consciousness, how would I be showing up? How would I be sharing my purpose? How would I be interacting with other humans, and so on and so on?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, if we continue on the path of the master's degree, the master of completion, being an ascended master, we would start by saying that you have ascended mastery in multiple areas. That when you look at an ascended master, such as me, Thoth, there's ascended mastery in scribing. There's ascended mastery in Akashic records. There's ascended mastery in healing. It's not just one area. So the new paradigm may be another word for unity consciousness, that this new paradigm is also recognizing that it's not that you're operating in your business from only one ascended mastery, and you're not operating in your business from even necessarily the modalities that you have learned, although of course those can be a part of it, yet also that expertise that relates to each of your unique signature energies. So that may be a way of grounding what it looks like. So separation consciousness says one size fits all, that there is this you have to go to school for 20 years to learn something, you specialize in it. And unity consciousness is that you are unique, you have your own divine brilliance that you're here to carry, and that there's mastery in multiple areas. Some other examples are really the old paradigm of co-creation, that in the old paradigm, there's the not enough to go around, competition, compare and despair, that, and in the new paradigm or unity consciousness, there really is that recognition of the energy of win, 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 and that there is that the illusions start to fall away. So there's a lot that we could talk about in terms of unity and how duality of the negative and the positive, or even saying that there's a benevolent and a malevolent unity consciousness. And we understand what you're talking about there. You're talking about some of the spiritual shackles that individuals use that are distortions to keep out of that direct connection with source. Yet the duality then, rather than being experienced as separate, it's experienced in union or in wholeness. So we could have a lot of examples of, as well, what we speak of as multi-D abundance, multidimensional abundance. So rather than in your business, your money goes up, but your time goes down, which is again an old paradigm, trading one form of abundance for another, feast and famine cycle, that you can't be having it all or having a unity abundance, a wholeness abundance. That there is this recognition that actually that's what, from our perspective, is also a new paradigm of business, because there's so many coaches and healers and practitioners that are trying to create their next six figures from hoofing it, or from overworking, or from overthinking, or from using physical plane energies. And then in this new paradigm of unity consciousness, there's creating through energy, through consciousness in the higher planes. So this is something that we have been on a path with Danielle around for quite a while. So it's also evolved during the last however many years, of coming from the solar plexus and the will to the heart chakra, the Piscean age, the Aquarian age. So we know this is the Great Awakening show, and we don't need to provide the entire context of Great Awakening. And yet, did that get to the essence to open the field for individuals to receive? For that, to us, was the tone of your question, the feeling tone of your question, was to really, as we're using unity consciousness, to provide some context so that those that are tuning in can really receive without the distortion or the overlay getting in the way.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that. And speaking of distortions, over the last, well, and everyone will be in different stages, as we know, but people are becoming more and more aware of the fact that really a lot of almost everything, in fact, of what we thought this world was, on a human level at least, right? And the nature of who we thought was running the planet versus maybe what we're discovering. There's a lot of things we're uncovering, right, around what's true and what's distorted and so on. So with respect to where we're going, we've had things like time and money. really distorted for us in this old paradigm, we'll call it. And what is it going to look like, let's say, even in 3 to 5 years from now? What is our relationship with time going to be? What is our relationship with money going to be? What is our relationship with governance going to be? Is that even part of the plan? What are you seeing for humanity over the next little bit with respect to that?
Yeah, and so we're asking the Akashic records to open, for we don't usually predict or share those type of explorations. And so we're looking a little bit for a middle ground, or an overlapping circle of the essence of your question, and Danielle and us being in our ascended masteries, not to deflect the question, yet to find kind of that entryway, or that doorway. And where we would begin with that is to really circle back to illusion and distortion. And the simple answer, the essence of the answer we would share, is that in 3 to 5 years, more and more and more and more and more of the illusion and the distortion around the concept of time and will be evaporated. It's like we often share how when you go into a circus, they have those mirrors where when you stand in front of it, you look super tall, or you look very short, or you see 1,000 images of yourself. And that is how time is perceived. That is how money is perceived. That is how government is perceived. And in 3 to 5 years, it's like money is money. Time is multidimensional now. And all of that will just be simply what it is. There's an isness to it that actually doesn't need 3 to 5 years. It's what many of you are tuning into already, to see beyond those constructs, or those constructs that served for a while that no longer are serving. So it feels like time is lighting up the most for us. And so is there a code or a key that you have around time to unlock a little bit more of what we're here to explore? Because there's a lot of different ways that we could speak about time: collapsing time, bending time, accelerating time, there is no time, multidimensional time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. I'm aware that when we first inhabited on this planet as human beings, when the human race first came here, that we had a set of time codes, and that over time that was distorted and, I'll say, hijacked, to have us operating outside of our natural rhythms and outside of the way in which our planet is relating to other, I'll say, planets and dimensions and so on. So the distortion with time almost like reverberates into just our way of being, and our ability to be present, and our ability to, have time work for us, right? So we can collapse it and bend it and have it be a servant to us. And if anything, I feel like we've been a servant to time for, well, probably since the beginning of time in a lot of ways. So I'd love to hear your take on what is the actual time that we're going to calibrate to, and how do we use it to really serve our missions. And this, I guess the second piece of that is, people are feeling like they're running out of time. that time is of the essence. They're feeling like, oh my goodness, the world's about to implode. We're all going to die. What's the point? There's a way that time, I feel, is feeding into the hopelessness or despair that is pretty palpable right now, I would say, in the collective.
Yeah, well, we often speak about unique and universal. You have a unique divine design and a universal divine design. So we would introduce this same unique time and universal time to explore the evolution of time, or the essence of time. And one thing that you brought forward is what we would describe around unique time and honoring the internal rhythm, that there is a real flow and a taking back, so to speak, of what you're each choosing to focus on, that is what matters most to you, that's aligned to your mission. And there's so much that's going on the Earth Star that just doesn't apply to your mission or matter to you. And so then that goes into another time dimension, and then it starts to, we're using this word evaporate, we don't use this word really ever. And so Danielle's aware we're using this word evaporate. We like that because it's like when there's heat on something, then there's an evaporation, there's an alchemy, there's a changing. So how that starts to look in a way, like what Danielle's noticed is that she has gone from a however many hour week, and it evolves, it's not always the same yet, to a 4-day work week, that there's a greater efficiency of being in her business, being on mission, to a 24-hour week, and there's more that's getting done. So how is more getting done in less time? Well, the energy that she's coming from is more efficient and expansive, and the illusion that all these kinds of things need to take X amount of time just isn't operating in her field. What we speak about in terms of partnering with source, when you're partnering with yourself and as you work with the Akashic records, there's things can just move in a way that's outside of time. So that's what we would say about unique time, that honoring of the internal and external rhythm, really being connected to what it is that you each know about from your origin source, how things have operated in alternate lifetimes that aren't always bipedal human lifetimes, how you know that things can be created instantaneously. So there's a lot of reclaiming of what the spiritual shackles or the shackles around time was putting in the mirror for those ascended masteries to be reclaimed. So that's what we'd say about unique time. And then universal time, it's we're giggling a little bit because it's a little bit TBD, to be determined. It's a little bit unknown, because in a way it's not an average mean of, like, let's say that 6 million individuals are going to operate in multi-dimensionality and 2 whatever are going to operate in 3D time. So then there's a mean of a certain kind of time. So what I mean by to be determined is that it really does kind of depend on what is unfolding in the now moment, and each in your unique time that is informing universal time. And this brings us back to what, from our perspective, is really underestimated, is how much of a difference you make in your own unique time and with universal time or abundance or in the awakening, by what is happening in your internal and external environment. So our advice, our invitation would be to pay less attention of what is really none of your business or not relating to your missions, and to get really focused and intimate on what matters most to you, what's aligned for you, what is your honoring of your own system and your discernment. So we have a sense we sprinkled in some grounded or practical or kind of expressions or analogies around how that may show up. And yet Danielle's asking, what about that universal time? What do we mean by to be determined? So is there anything that you would bring forward or piggyback to kind of direct, because we can go in a lot of different directions? And perhaps that's it. It's like in every now moment, you can go in a lot of different directions. And actually that's a cool thing about the awakening, is that you can be focusing on one direction right now. Jennifer, Danielle are in this podcast, and yet there's a lot more that they're both up to and that you're each up to than what's happening right now. So what you focus on is perhaps one of the things that will be universal time, is that it can be simultaneous in different ways. So when you talk about having time work for you or having money work for you, that's an example of sending money off, as you share, to work for you while you're not actively doing anything with money. That's the same principle that we're bringing in here, that your focus can be even more varied in a variety of streams of consciousness in a universal time that works really, really, really well. Because we feel the uncertainty that you're speaking about. We know what you're talking about in the collective. And there's also a lot of divine order that is orchestrating so that things unfold in a perfect, in an optimal way. It's not that there are cars that are driving and they're all hitting each other. There's a divine order to things. Out of the billions of streams of possibilities that are happening all the time, there is what we're speaking of divine order or truth or ma'at. There's some governing principles that are continuing to keep things in that order. And perhaps that'll create some reassurance for your systems, for your nervous systems, and to give yourself examples of that, to see that you don't go to sleep and then wake up the next day having to reconfigure your hands and your feet, even though you know everything's energy. There are some principles. It's not just anything goes from our perspective.
So can we trust then that the universal principles are operating even when we can't see them? That even when it seems like things might be tough, or even though it seems like things might be hopeless, or whatever people are experiencing, because it feels like there's waves of experiences that people are having in a given day, whether they're picking up on collective energy, whether they're personally experiencing it. If people were, if we look at how to navigate the paradox right now of living in the void, right? We don't know what's going to happen. We're literally in between worlds right now. And we still have to wake up every day and brush our teeth and drink water and feed the body. And there's some mundane human things that we have to do. What's the best way, if you were to give people tips before we wrap up today, about how do we live in the void of there's all this big, heavy paradigm shifting happening, and there's a whole bunch of mundane things that we have to just keep, chopping wood. That whole notion of just getting on with the day and getting on with being human.
Well, we would circle back to what we shared earlier, that when you're experiencing your now moment from the distorted filters of the body, mind, emotion, from those lies, then you'll be hearing those lies. You'll be hearing hopelessness. You'll be hearing the sky is falling. You'll be hearing the distortion, whatever it is. And then it does kind of go into a larger thing, which is who is the I that is feeling hopeless? Who is the I that is in resistance? And oftentimes it is the distorted body, mind, emotion filters. So by perceiving, by going into more dimensions, by opening up to a greater sense of navigating your day as your divine self, as your signature energy, as your brilliance, as who it is that you really are, not the distortions that you're not powerful, that you're not creating all of this, then that is a way to navigate what we shared with Danielle in 2011 and earlier, to navigate the greatest way, the most easeful way to navigate these changing times is to be you full out, is to have your signature energy really vibrationally visible. And one of the ways that we apply that is by creating. When you're creating your coffee, when you're creating your water, when you're creating your book, when you're creating, it is a way to be in the seat of being a creator being, and then to utilize that I don't know, because the I don't know is actually a beautiful place. And we know that some of you are in this place right now of there's a new beginning. Maybe your job's ended, or you're starting your business, or you've gone through a divorce and you don't know who your next partner is, or you don't know, and that can be a white knuckle, or that can be arms in the air on the roller coaster. And there's really some exciting things, because we know some of you had gotten a bit bored with all the knowns of everything seeming fixed. And so how can the I don't know be a wow, I really don't know, and then experiencing it from a place of what else is possible, or the greater yet to be. So there was about 5 or more things that we said in there. So we would just kind of synthesize or summarize to really be you full out, your signature energy, to be in your brilliance, to be a creator being, and to be questioning the voice that's saying hopelessness, to really be recognizing, is that coming from the old paradigm separation consciousness you, that you already have the master's degree, that's going to give you a continued repetitive pattern loop that's just going to keep going? Or is that the new you? Is that the new now you?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I can see in speaking with so many people how the human part of us and the old paradigm part of us wants to have all the answers. We, on an energetic level, know how to live in the question, but on a 3D level, we don't necessarily have a lot of practice in living in the question. And it sounds like that's our opportunity right now, is to calibrate into the unknown as a place of, I'll say, creation or magic, versus a place to be feared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as you know, when words are repeated, there's a charge to them. So in the last 18 months, the word uncertain has been said probably more than ever before. And how can that uncertainty actually be exciting and a doorway to the magic, and a question not to get an answer, yet a question to create more space? So where is the uncertainty creating more space? How much more have you all dived into your priorities and what matters most to you? And the last thing that we would share, because you asked about this earlier, is that individuals are feeling like there's a rush, or there's not enough time. And we would reframe that to a sense of it is go time. Like it is the Olympics in higher consciousness. And so we love that you're feeling a sense of urgency, or you're feeling a sense of each of you, okay, now's the time to be sharing what it is that you know already, and in a larger way, to be more visible, all of those things. And so it is go time, and yet that is actually what you've been waiting for. So there's still a little bit of a, oh, okay, I've been carrying this knowledge for however many lifetimes, and I've gotten used to not bringing it forward. Oh, actually now this is the lifetime to bring it forward. So it's just a little bit of a difference, since we've been using the Olympics in consciousness, of it's not a practice game, it's actually the day of the Olympics. And there's a different energy of that. It doesn't matter how you do or don't do. You just show up in that place of you actually have already trained for it. You actually know all there is to know about it. And then it's game on. There's being in that zone. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Well, I know there's so much wisdom we can glean from today, aside from what you've already shared, and of course, all the nuances energetically, right, that we can feel into. So it would be wonderful to have you back on the show to, share what we can do next, because if there's one thing we are certain of, is that more change is to come, and that we're going to have the choice to calibrate to that change or figure out how we're going to navigate that. So it'd be wonderful to have you back on. And I know you've got a lot of different things available to people right now for them to step into ways of deepening their work with you, right? If they choose to step into that. So can we share a little bit about how people can get in touch with you? I know you've got a really cool program coming up with the Magdalens that you're wanting to share with people. And of course, however else we want to invite people into your world.
Yeah. So we would just step aside here, sending much love and appreciation to each of you for your contribution to the evolution in consciousness. For it takes all of us, those incarnate and those in light, to evolve consciousness. All is light and love, and we are all. Yeah, so Danielle here, moving more to the forefront. So much fun. Yeah, so the Magdalene Codes Multi Abundance Method is starting 11/11/2021. And that really has been like, it came in 11/11/2020 was the first time it was offered. And it's just been blowing my mind for myself and for those that have chosen it. That really is about accessing love as our way to actualize our fully realized lives and manifest in wholeness. So without overworking and pushing and striving and the hot potato of money coming up and coming in and going out. So it is an activation sequence of 20 codes plus the multi-abundance method. So ways of really using your multidimensionality to create, which of course is one of the fastest ways to collapse time. So if you'd like to find out more about that, then you can email at team@divinetransmissions.com. or just go to divinetransmissions.com to submit information about a request to find out more about Magdalene codes. And that's DIVINE transmissions, like missions in transition with an S.com. And then the other thing that's going on is that I, at DanielleHoffman.com, have a treasure chest of gifts. If you want to just kind of get some free goodies, you can hop on over there, and also have a Scribe Your Book with Source in 100 Days program that's starting in the new year. So you can also go to DanielleHoffman.com/apply to find out more about that. So
Awesome.
yeah, probably the best place is to get the goodies, and then of course, right, the discernment, if the Magdalene codes are popping or the Scribe with Source is popping, I know everyone will know.
Awesome. Thank you. And for everyone listening, we're going to put that in the show notes. So we'll make sure that you have that available to you so that you don't have to struggle, especially if you're getting activated by the transmission that Danielle and the guides just did. You may not be entirely in your body to be taking notes, right? So awesome. Well, Danielle, you and I could talk forever. And we do have the opportunity, of course, to talk outside of this podcast. So I feel like I'm probably not asking you some questions because I already, we may have already talked about it, right? So it'd be great to have you come on again in a little bit, and we'll unpack some more stuff. Maybe we'll pick like just one big theme and really unpack it for people and see, what comes forward. So thank you for being here. I'm grateful for you. And I'm sure I'm speaking for others when we say thank you so much for being here and offering those transmissions, and also the shift that you have to make in order to be, make yourself a clear channel. So thank you for that. We're going to wrap up today, everyone, and we will see you again really soon. Bye for now.